Good morning, afternoon, and evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today, Accelerate Your Media Management Workflow with Cloudian and Evolphin. Joining us today is Rahul Bhargava, CTO and founder of Evolphin. Rahul is a serial entrepreneur with 20 years of software industry experience. Prior to Evolphin, he was one of the founders of WAN Disco. Also joining us today is Sanjay Jagat, Senior Director of Products and Solutions at Cloudian. Sanjay began his career as an engineer writing firmware. He brings a wealth of knowledge and diverse experience in product marketing and product management, spending the last 20 years using the latest technologies and storage to help customers build dynamic IT infrastructures. Welcome, Rahul and Sanjay. With that, I'll hand it over to Rahul.
What we are first going to talk about is from an editor or creative perspective, how do they survive a time-pressured media workflow? When they get into the product, it allows them to go to a homepage that gives them a personalized feed for all the activities that are happening around these large media workflows. They can look at the recent files that they are involved with, the team members that they are collaborating with, other creatives, graphics designer. All of that activity feed is presented in the homepage for them to be able to work easily. The other thing that Evolphin Zoom does for them is bring a unified asset management repository experience. And by that, what I mean is in the modern workflows, people are not just working in silos with videos or audio files or graphic files. They need to be able to combine all types of assets, whether these are Microsoft Office files like PowerPoint decks with information about the project, or 3D files, Photoshop files. All these various assets need to come together. It's very critical for the creative team to be able to know what are the correct versions. If a colleague made some changes, they want to be able to be notified that they are working on the right version. And using a tool like Evolphin Zoom, they can see the version history, they can compare versions, and be able to very precisely point out which are the final versions that need to be published and which are the versions that are being edited. Now, in the modern workflows, like I said, people don't just work with one type of assets. There are a variety of asset types that are involved. So a creative team might be using Premiere or After Effects for their video and motion graphics project. They might be using InDesign for brochures, Photoshop, and Illustrator for design. And it's very critical that MAM system going from one app to another or going from the app to the MAM console, they can work pretty much from within their creative app. So we are going to take a look at one such integration with Adobe Premiere. Premiere is a tool that is used a lot for working with videos. And in this instance, we are looking at a panel that has been created by us that allows the creative team to browse through various views of the assets of the footages that they're going to be working with. They can see a grid view or a list view, and they have even the ability to filter right from within Premiere. So imagine if you're working with millions of assets and you need to get to a particular set of videos, browsing through the file system or a network share is very slow. Being able to do that in the context of Premiere, in a panel, being able to do a hover scrub, like I'm doing, and be able to see all the low-res proxies that are behind these high-res footage right there in the Premiere panel helps the editor figure out what assets they do need to bring into their Premiere timeline. And the ability to be able to preview a larger preview inside Premiere is also critical, because then they don't have to go hunting for the asset, which might be in an archive. They can see it even before they bring it back from an archive. So talking about working with footage, one of the key element of a MAM like Evolphin Zoom is the ability to work with proxies. Often these assets are very large. The native assets could be a RED 8K footage. And at times it is difficult to keep all these large native footages on the active online storage. So some of these files might be in an offline state, and just work with a smaller footprint file, do your rough cuts, and then switch to a high-res proxy when you're ready to do an export. So talking about exports, a key part of media workflow these days is ability to publish assets directly from within the creative tool. So for example, you click the export button in our panel, and that would invoke the Adobe Media Encoder, and it would publish the assets into the repository. It would also publish it to a lightbox. And this lightbox is a web-based tool where a marketing manager or upstream users can have access to the finished video. They can input comments in from their web client. So for instance, if Sylvia decides to put some comments in here at a particular time code, as soon as she does save, the comments will flow back into Premiere. So if the editor was working on the same export, they can see by clicking on the timecode marker, they can reply from this interface directly to Sylvia and have a chat about the changes. So this is very critical to accelerate the workflows. Prior to this, people would have to upload the files to a web interface, to another service, and that takes time. But with Zoom, the collaboration between your editing tools and the end user who's reviewing is seamless because they're all going against the same unified repository without having to upload the content multiple times. As you start working with large videos and you start making changes, it becomes apparent that if you want to save versions, you will end up storing the same file, almost the same size again and again. So if you go through 10 iterations for a video based on feedback from your team, you could have 10 times 10, 100 gigabyte. But using the front-end deduplication feature that Evolphin Zoom has, we will just save data that needs to be stored. So let's take a look at this in the context of a Photoshop file. This just works with any type of media file, any type of project file. So as soon as I make the changes here, I change the color of the flowers. I'm presented with a check-in dialog, which can be customized. And I put my comments, I'm turning off a layer. And if I look at the change, I've just saved around 2 megabytes. And if I examine the actual file, it's much larger. It's around 100 megabytes. And I can confirm that on Finder, and I see that it's around 111 megabytes. So what's going on here is that the system is doing deduplication on your workstation, detecting what changed and transmitting the changes over to the server. And this cuts down on the network bandwidth, it cuts down on the active storage. And when you start archiving to a store like Cloudian S3, you are basically storing less data, so it's a lot faster. Now, as you are working with these video workflows, it's very important to have a high-res ingest strategy. And with a tool like Evolphin Zoom, it presents you with an architecture that allows an ingest service to essentially route assets based on various criteria, whether these are native assets or smaller assets. It can route them through a fiber channel path versus a normal Ethernet path. So large assets then are accelerated and moved through to the transcoding layer, to the archive layer, like Cloudian S3, really fast. The ingest server fully automates the flow. When a studio, for example, brings in a camera card with gazillion clips, the ingest server can take the camera card and go through the transcoder, create proxies, and also archive the original footage. Once the footage is in the system, a MAM system like Evolphin Zoom allows you to archive easily from within the interface. That would send the data associated with that project, all the versions, all the exports, onto the archive store. Zoom supports hierarchical archive management. So, for example, you might start with active storage on a hybrid drive, SSD, and hard disk, and you could have it automatically move to tapes, and then eventually move it to a cloud or a storage system like Cloudian S3. Once the assets are archived, the asset managers or the creatives every now and then would want to bring them back. And the interface for locating the asset based on metadata is pretty simple. You search based on the usual metadata that you have set up. Once you locate the assets, you can right-click and do a restore. And behind this restore is a framework that has all the magic to talk to a store like a Cloudian S3 or to a tape-based archive. The system can then notify the requester that these assets are there, and then they can start using them in the project. And I cannot tell you how valuable this is. Without a system like this, you could have your editors and users contacting the IT guys, and it could take hours or days to locate the right footage. And then when they restore, if they haven't restored the right one, then this whole cycle can repeat. Now, in addition, we also implement a petition process. So if a user accidentally requests too much data, like somebody triggered a restore with 2 terabyte folder structure, the admins can set up thresholds and say, hey, you really need 2 files, so you don't really need 2 or 3 terabytes. And that the system can then allow the admin to prune the request and just transmit the files that need to be restored to a backend system like Cloudian S3. And finally, final slide from me is about high availability. A lot of these large media workflows are distributed. You have team members split across cities, or sometimes even US, Germany, and China, and the MAM servers were replicated. The database itself was replicated at all the sites. And the idea was, if I am working in Germany and editing some files, I have fast access to my local SAN, and I can do my edits, check in my changes, and my Premiere project and my files get synced up to US, so that next day morning, if someone in New York wants to look at my project, they can just check out the changes. They have access to the low-res proxies, which are synced in the database, and they can then go and do a cut there. So it makes it very easy to collaborate across multiple geographies and sites. It also enables failover. So if one of the site goes down and I am running some critical media workflows, I'm not, I can still make progress. I'm not stuck waiting for that site to come out. So that's a little bit about the Evolphin Zoom product. So I'm going to switch gears now and pass control to my colleague, Sanjay.
Well, it's amazing how Evolphin and the solution that you have not only makes it easy for people in the studios and others to manage that media asset, but the ability to do that in a very distributed manner, where you can have geographically different distributed people working on the same project, is amazing. So you guys do a fantastic job. You know, it's very important when you think about the media asset management and the workflows that Rahul just walked you through it. You know, the amount of content and the data that is generated in this whole process, and to enable those workflows, it's very important that you have the right storage that goes along with it, so that it not only allows you to accomplish what you are trying to get done from your workflow, but it also enhances and adds to the value of what a customer is trying to achieve, not only from its cost of managing that storage, but also to enable the workflows and to do this seamlessly. I want to just start off with something very, a very high level. Like, you know, with all this popularity of rich media and the proliferation of data and mobile devices and digitization of this content, there has been this exponential growth of data, unstructured data, which the IT has to manage, right? You know, and this unprecedented growth of data is not actually sustainable simply by the current existing environments, be it their SAN and file infrastructures. And this is where a platform like Cloudian, which is an enterprise object storage, comes into the picture. You know, this particular slide just illustrates the places where we see this unprecedented growth of data, be it in your backup and archive use case, right? You know, where you're backing up lots and lots of data, be it in media files that we just talked about, right? You know, customers are used to writing this to tapes, but tapes have inherent limitations. Platform that can be offered as storage as a service for different constituents to take advantage of this and be able to store their data. Media and entertainment, we talked about the workflows, the kind of media assets that we're talking about, 4K, 8K, 3D, and that, you know, that amount of data needs to be stored and made accessible. We're talking about research and biodata, right? You know, the security and surveillance. This all data can come from anywhere, right? You know, we at Cloudian are trying to build a platform that enables you to take care of this unprecedented growth of managing your unstructured data. To do this in a very seamless way that is very easy to manage, so you need to have an environment that is very simple and easy to manage. You can add the capacity non-disruptively, and also a UI which is very user-friendly, allows you to customize by adding scriptable modules that you can then automate and then fit into your existing workflows. we talked about scale, right? A storage system is only as helpful when it can accommodate the scale if it's seamless, right? If you have to move your data in and out in order to grow that environment, that defeats the whole purpose of having a limitless scalable system. So you need a system that can basically look like a single device. You don't have to migrate the data off, but you also have the ability to not only just add capacity and grow performance along with it. I want to just briefly touch on some of the use cases I mentioned earlier, right? When you talk about some of the use cases around offering this as storage as a service, it's easy to say, yes, I can create tenants and offer this as a service, but there's a lot that goes into it, right? When you're looking at ensuring that every tenant has the SLAs and they are met. So having a QoS capability that not only allows you to make sure that your individual tenants are meeting their SLAs, but to do this in a very secure way where you can have individual tenants have their own policies, and then to be able to create usage statistics that can be used as a billable entity for that particular tenant. You want to make sure that you fit seamlessly into the existing workflows. You're not asking for them to rip and replace their workflows or change their workflows. So integrating into the workflows that you already have, that you have been using with your other storages devices or your tape drives, but to just slide in and fit in and be able to now be that destination or the tier of storage that can allow you to store that huge amount of data in a very cost-effective way is very important. We just talked about the media and management workflows, right? In this particular case, the content comes from all your video clips, images, as Rahul was mentioning, right? Be it your PowerPoint or those Windows Office, and you want to collaborate and make those things together. That's where the media asset managers come in, like Evolphin. But what happens once you finish working on a project and you want to archive it or you want to recover it and store all these files, but also has integrated distributed DR so that you can now use this platform across the globes for different constituents who are working on the same project. And last but not the least in this particular case is when you look at unstructured data, one of the statistics that we have seen in our customers is when you're using file storages, about 60% of that data is not even touched for years, right? And this is where you're spending premium dollars on your tier one storage. Why spend that money when you're not even using that data? And this is where you can offload that data into an object store platform like Cloudian, which again seamlessly fits from an application perspective into your workflows where you don't see any change to the application, but you are now tiering that data into Cloudian, which is highly scalable, very, very cost effective. And now the industry has started to realize the value of object storage and what it brings to the table and how do I fit that object storage platform into my existing workflows. When you talk about fitting into existing workflows, it's very important that the platform, the storage platform, is only as good as the ecosystem of the application that can use and support it, right? And one thing that makes us very unique, and we'll talk a little bit about in the uniqueness of our features, is the ability to have and run S3, which is becoming more of a de facto for object storage natively, and provide the highest level of compatibility within the industry, right? You'll see a lot of object storage which say we talk S3, but do they support all the native API calls? Because no application requires performance to create workarounds. So this is where a platform that is 100% native S3 API calls and has the broadest compatibility in terms of S3 APIs is very, very valuable. And that is why you see this ecosystem of partners that we work with, including from enterprise backups to NAS offload to media asset manager, that can seamlessly work with Cloudian without having to make significant changes on their side that allows them to focus on what they do best and then leverage Cloudian and let Cloudian do what we do best, which is our S3 API, highly scalable, secure platform. So we have a rich ecosystem, broadest interoperability out here so that you can take advantage of those partners that we work with and fit into your workflows in your data center needs. You have the flexibility that allows customers to pick and choose and run on the hardware platform that offer the best cost for them, right? So for that particular purpose, we offer a software-only solution that can be deployed as a VM or on the hardware of your choice, right? We offer flexibility, whether it's a perpetual license or a subscription-based license, right? So we give you that flexibility. But for customers, there are a lot of our customers who want a complete integrated platform, which is hardware, software, sold like a traditional appliance, right? And we do that too. It's pre-configured at the factory, tested, end-to-end supported. So we give you that flexibility, be it appliance, be it software-defined storage, different consumption models, perpetual license, subscription license. Talking about our appliance, we do have two different form factors. We offer a one new box, which is our entry box. And again, one of the things that is very unique about Cloudian is we can give you those entry-level configs. And a lot of our, if you look at it from object store vendors, they require that you have at least certain amount of capacity or certain amount of nodes, whereas we get you started with as low as 100 terabytes, right? But we also understand that you have lots and lots of data that needs to be stored. So we offer variations and choices where you now can also buy a 4U appliance with 2 nodes in it, hot swappable, to meet your enterprise needs, but also lots and lots of capacity and performance. In terms of feature sets, as I was saying, right, it's an object storage, as I said earlier. It's becoming a de facto standard that it talks S3. And it's not just about talking S3, right? When you have a layer of translation that is based on S3, but then internally your implementation is completely different, a lot gets lost in translations, right? So it's very important that you're running the S3 APIs natively, and that's what we do. It also is very important that when you're talking about highly scalable platform, that it can do multi-tenancy. It can do quality of service for different tenants. It can do billing. It also needs to have policy-based data protection, right? Not every data is the same critical nature, right? There is certain data that needs to be highly protected. There are certain data sets that you can more interested in getting the highest usable capacity and priorities at that level so that you can tag that data. You have the ability to, from object storage, natively tier to the public cloud of your choice, right? It's a single system that can run objects, files. We're talking about files like NFS access, SMB access, FTP access, and offer not just 6 nines, but you're talking about 14 nines of durability, data durability. And they do this all at a very, very low price. We're talking about ½ cent per gig per month. Now that's where you're talking about an enterprise object storage that can do all those things. As I mentioned earlier, at Cloudian, we offer you complete flexibility to meet your needs around hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, right? We are the only platform that based on policies allows you to migrate the data. When that data is in the cloud, you can now take advantage of the tools and the ecosystem that particular cloud offers to work on that data. We're talking about an example in this particular case is if you have a media asset that you want to now move it into, let's say, a Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud and take advantage of their machine learning and artificial intelligence to do certain work on it, we facilitate that kind of workflows. And that is, again, how do I fit into your existing workflows so that now we become an asset to you rather than a liability is very important. And now, as I would like to summarize this and end at the fact that At Cloudian, we offer you a storage platform that can scale an infinite storage with infinite possibilities.
Thanks again, Rahul and Sanjay, for your time and for the audience for joining us. First question. We spent hours looking for a clip in old footage. Is there a way to find or preview an archived video without having to restore it?
Yeah, that's a key part of a MAM system like Zoom, to be able to preview videos that have been archived. And we have the ability to pin previews when the assets are archived. So essentially, we have a preview cache that will keep all these archived assets, videos in a low-res proxy pinned. And so you can come in, preview the videos before you trigger a big restore. And that is critical in an accelerated media workflow, where editor might be looking through hundreds of clips, trying to locate the right one. Many of these clips are sitting in, let's say, a Cloudian S3 object store. And without having to wait for the entire footage to restore, ability to preview is a lifesaver.
You know, I just want to add one more thing to what Rahul said, right? You know, it's object storage by nature offers rich metadata. And what that means is now you have the ability to classify those media assets and provide those necessary tags that allow you to now search on those metadata assets and be able to pull that data. So if you have archived this object, you still have archive your project, you still have an ability to search for that within your archive tier and be able to facilitate recovery and restore of those particular media assets. So that's another benefit of having an object storage platform underneath that fits into the media asset management workflows.
So next question, our customer require Cloudian with NAS gateway, and NAS should support throughput 500 megabytes. Could you please recommend a NAS gateway in this case? How can we scale for this throughput?
So yes, I'll take this, right? You know, again, whenever we talk about performance, it's very important to understand the layout and how you're trying to put this infrastructure together. We work, as I mentioned earlier, we work with different partners and within this space. We have our own file access storage, which can scale and be able to meet your performance requirements. So what I would recommend is for us to have a call so that we can understand your environment a little better and offer and suggest the right files gateway solution that will meet your performance needs.
Next question. My boss is leaning on me to do more in the cloud. Which parts of this solution are cloud-based?
So maybe I can start by describing what parts of this MAM architecture can be cloud-based, and then we can finish with the storage side. So the way the MAM system that Evolphin makes is architected, pretty much all the parts can be cloud-based. The most critical part is the MAM server and the database. And once that is in the cloud, you have the benefit of end users that are on remote sites, satellite offices, partners and suppliers. They can get to the content directly through a cloud-based service. So this could be the final finished videos, exported files, brochures, materials that have been created. So that is very amenable to being in the cloud. Now, the part that often is on-premise is the ingest service. The reason for that is very simple. When you are ingesting terabytes of content, you could have a camera card, like I was mentioning earlier, a RED 8K, and you could have a couple of terabytes on that. It is very difficult to send all of that into the cloud and then perform the transcoding there. So we often have deployments where the ingest service runs on-premise, and it can talk to a transcoding service, which is also on-premise. And once that transcodes are done, the MAM server, the ingest server can orchestrate pushing the proxies into the cloud, pushing the technical metadata into the cloud, and the actual archive of the native footage that will also be on a cloud or on-premise. So with that architecture, you could have like active replicas of the MAM servers all around on the cloud. You could have multiple sites set up on the cloud where the MAM database is replicated, and the individual ingest servers could be at different location, ingesting and transporting the content.
It says, my environment is small but growing. At what point should I create an archive so that I don't find myself overwhelmed by my content?
Okay, so I can give you the perspective of media workflow that from the concept and onto the final project being finished. So what we see is when the native assets are ingested, we're talking about the camera card and the raw footage and sources that are coming in, it's a good idea to make a copy upon ingest. And the reason that is a good idea is that gives you basically a level of fault tolerance, since your native footage is often something that you cannot replace easily. If, for example, you did a video shoot at Olympics final of, let's say, a soccer match, and you can't go back in time. So it's very critical to do archive on ingest. And the best solutions out there would allow the MAM tier to automate that. So as soon as you start the ingest process, even before the transporting layer gets going, in parallel, a copy can be sent to archive system like an S3, Cloudian, and that will get your native footage protected. Now, the other part is you should look at what sort of storage growth are you experiencing. So for some brands and some organization, it might be okay to wait till the project is finished. And once the project is finished, a media asset manager could then go into the MAM interface, select the project container or folder, and trigger a right-click archive, and that will send all the data offline. That may work for organizations that have an active media asset manager, but we often find these days the IT organizations are pretty thin, and often there isn't a MAM or a DAM manager that is proactively doing this active to archive transition. So in that case, you could look at some automated policies. So MAM system like Evolphin Zoom would allow you to set up a set of rules on the backend. For instance, if my active SAN has 30% storage left, then start picking up all the older projects that have not been touched in, let's say, 3 months or 6 months, and apply that retention policy of X months, and then automatically archive them to another tier. And that next tier might be a slower disk-based archive. And then after, let's say, a retention period of a year, the system could automatically move it from the slower storage to a cloud-based storage. So you could try to automate that policy where it's not left to someone, and you don't want to get to a point where you're overwhelmed by the content, and then you are scrambling to move data off your main online storage.
Thank you again, everyone who joined us today. Thank you again, Sanjay and Rahul. If you would like to find out more about Cloudian, you can visit us at www.cloudian.com. We also have a rich ecosystem of reseller and solution provider partners you can find on our website if you have relationships with them. And you can find out more about Evolphin at www.evolphin.com.